Fleet Admiral Zixathara had conquered 17 star systems in her illustrious career. Her bioluminescent tentacles pulsed with confidence as she gazed upon the blue-green world before her fleet. The third planet of this unremarkable system would fall like all the others, swift, decisive, absolute. "Scan complete, Admiral," chittered Communications Officer Velka, his compound eyes reflecting the tactical display. "Single-species, carbon-based primitive technology. They call themselves humans. No orbital defenses detected. No energy shields. Their most advanced weapons appear to be chemical propellant projectiles." Zixathara's mandibles clicked in amusement. Pathetic. Even the Graxians put up more resistance, and they were still using fusion rockets. She turned to her weapons officer. "Bring us into standard orbital bombardment position. This will be over within the hour." The Kethmori hegemony had perfected the art of planetary conquest over 3 millennia. Their dreadnoughts possessed plasma cannons capable of glassing continents. Their shields could deflect antimatter warheads, and their armies had never known defeat. 150 warships strong, the 7th Conquest Fleet was overkill for a world that hadn't even achieved faster-than-light travel. As the fleet approached the outer atmosphere, Zixathara noticed something odd on the long-range sensors. Massive metallic structures dotted the planet's surface, far too large to be cities, too symmetrical to be natural formations. "Velka, magnify Sector 7, she commanded. The image resolved into something that made her pause. Enormous cylindrical constructs, each one easily 50 kilometers long, pointing skyward like the fingers of some buried titan. They were partially embedded in mountainsides, their surfaces scarred with what appeared to be electromagnetic field generators running their entire length. "Primitive railgun technology," scoffed Weapons Officer Krextal. "Quaint. They probably use them to launch satellites." Zixathara wasn't so sure. The humans had built dozens of these devices across their world, and something about their positioning suggested military purpose rather than space exploration. Still, what threat could kinetic projectiles pose to ships equipped with quantum displacement armor? "Maintain approach vector," she decided. "But keep shields at 60% just to be—" The first railgun fired. What happened next would be debated in military academies across the galaxy for centuries. The projectile, a simple tungsten rod weighing approximately 50 tons, accelerated through the electromagnetic rails at nearly 10% the speed of light. The energy discharge was so massive that it created a temporary aurora across half the planet. The tungsten slug punched through the flagship's shields as if they were made of tissue paper. It struck the forward hull with the kinetic energy of a small star-going supernova, vaporizing 3 decks instantly and sending a shockwave through the entire vessel that shattered crystal matrices and liquefied organic crew members. Before Zixathara could even process what had happened, 17 more railguns opened fire simultaneously. The night sky above Earth lit up like a festival of destruction. Each tungsten projectile traced a brilliant line from surface to stars, and each one found its mark with mathematical precision. The humans had spent decades calculating orbital mechanics, plotting firing solutions, accounting for planetary rotation and target movement. They had turned their entire world into a fortress. Admiral Zixathara watched in horror as her mighty fleet disintegrated around her. The dreadnought Eternal Dominion simply ceased to exist when a railgun slug struck its reactor core. The heavy cruiser Void Render was cut in half lengthwise, its 2 pieces tumbling apart in a cloud of debris and frozen atmosphere. "Impossible," Krextal shrieked, his forearms working frantically at the controls. "These are primitive beings. How are they achieving such accuracy? Such power?" The answer would have terrified him even more. Humanity hadn't built these weapons in response to the alien fleet. They had built them in response to the possibility of alien fleets. For over 200 years, ever since radio telescopes had detected artificial signals from distant worlds, humans had been preparing. While they couldn't travel to the stars, they had turned their homeworld into the most heavily fortified planet in the galaxy. Each railgun was powered by fusion reactors that could have supplied entire cities. Their targeting systems were controlled by quantum computers that had been calculating potential alien approach vectors for decades. The tungsten slugs were manufactured to tolerances measured in atoms, each one a perfect instrument of destruction. The 7th volley vaporized the command ship's port engine array. The 8th punched completely through the vessel from bow to stern, creating a tunnel so smooth that stars were visible through it. Emergency klaxons wailed as the ship began to list, its artificial gravity fluctuating wildly. "Admiral!" Velka's voice cracked with panic. "We're receiving a transmission from the planet." "Put it through." Zixthera gasped, her respiratory organs struggling as the ship's atmosphere began venting into space. The voice that emerged from the speakers was calm, almost conversational, speaking in perfect Kethmori. "Attention, Invasion Fleet. This is General Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Command. You have entered our solar system with hostile intent. You have approximately 30 seconds to begin emergency retreat procedures before we target your remaining vessels." 30 seconds. After 3 millennia of galactic dominance, the mighty Kethmori hegemony was being given 30 seconds to flee by a species that had never left their homeworld. Zixthera looked around at what remained of her bridge crew. Half were dead or dying, the others staring at displays showing the systematic annihilation of their fleet. In 15 minutes, over 100 warships had been reduced to expanding clouds of metallic debris. "How?" she whispered to herself. "How did they know we were coming? How did they prepare?" The answer was typically human in its simplicity and terrifying in its implications. They had looked at the vast, dark universe and asked themselves one question: what if they're not friendly? Then they had spent 2 centuries making sure that question had an answer. As the remainder of the 7th Conquest Fleet limped away from the Sol system, Admiral Zixthera transmitted a priority message to Hegemony High Command. Classification of species designation human must be changed immediately. Recommend designation Apex Predator. Do not engage. Repeat, do not engage. On Earth, the railgun operators began the lengthy process of recharging their weapons. Not because they expected the aliens to return, but because somewhere out there in the galaxy, someone else might be asking the same question the Kethmori had asked. How hard could it be to conquer one little planet? The humans were ready to provide an answer, written in tungsten and electromagnetic fury across the star-filled sky. They had turned their cradle into a fortress, and they were very, very good at it. The universe had just learned that while humanity might not have reached the stars yet, they had made sure the stars would have to ask permission before reaching them.